Welcome back to another episode of Unbossed, where we are flipping the script on leadership and showing that you can have heart-based, compassionate leadership that produces results, real results, and powerful results. I have Gloria, my co-facilitator, here with me, president of HPWP, and today we have a very special guest, and I am super excited to bring her story to you guys because it is such a shining example of what it means to lead with heart in an industry that never leads with heart. And so she is flipping the script on a whole industry, bringing compassionate leadership to that. So Casie Rivas with Revis Law, welcome to the Unbossed show. Thank you for being here today.
Good to be here.
Appreciate it. And so if you didn't catch that, Casie Rivas is with Revis Law. So she actually started her own law practice. She is an attorney, a business attorney, fabulous business attorney at that. What we're here to talk about today is how she leads with heart and purpose. Because one of our number one creed in Heart Profit is that we do lead with heart and purpose. And we believe that leadership is a responsibility to serve with integrity, with vision, and with compassion. Heart Profit recognized businesses, Heart Profit certified businesses, they agree to these creeds, and Casie definitely lives by this, and not just her professional life, but also her personal life. So much integrity with heart with this woman. Let's just start with what inspired you to start Revis Law, and how did compassion become a core part of your leadership with that?
So all I've ever wanted to be was an attorney. My earliest memories, 5 years old, I knew this is what I wanted to do. I can't tell you why. I watched a lot of Perry Mason and Matlock, so maybe that was it. But this is what I always wanted to do. And I never wavered from that in college. I went straight to law school. This was my calling. And then I graduated, loved it, loved law school, got out, started practicing, and realized pretty quickly I kind of hated the industry. I loved what I was doing. I loved the work. I hated the energy around the job. And it took me years to figure out that's what it was. And so I actually job hopped. I was at a litigation firm in Dallas because, of course, I was going to be Perry Mason. And so I was at a litigation firm in Dallas for a while. And then I moved to a smaller firm, more local to where I live. And then I was there for a while. And I just didn't love litigation. So then I went out and went to an in-house. I left private practice and I went and worked in-house with an organization. It was actually a medical system. That is where I really connected the dots for me of what was missing from my legal career. When I worked with the health system, I was able to add that care perspective, right? So you're a lawyer. I'm not a nurse. I was not giving you bedside care, but everything I handled involved caring for our patients. And it created this job satisfaction that I had not had. And so I kind of realized, okay, I enjoyed caring for the company itself. The company itself was something I could care for and help grow and, be better. And I cared for the patients and I cared for my coworkers. And so that when I realized, okay, this feels like the missing piece. And then I left that one and went to another in-house facility, another in-house opportunity. And again, same. I was like, okay, I connect with people, but then I got restless again. And so I figured out that people connection was what I needed. I enjoyed the corporate world because of the people connection. I could see results. I could say, here's an issue today, let's change it and implement it. And in 2 weeks, the solution had been implemented. And so it was a great feeling. But I did not still enjoy that corporate weight, the weight of being in a corporate environment. It's a heavy weight on you. And so after a couple of years, I started getting again. And I was driving home one day and, no, we're not discussing, religion today, but I can't leave God out of the conversation. Because every single thing I do, I follow my instinct. My instinct is given to me by God. And so I was driving home one day and I'm restless and I have this beautiful, perfect job and it's wonderful. I have no reason to leave. And I'm like, God, I'm unhappy. And I just you got to open your own firm. You got to open your own firm. It was nothing I ever planned on doing, ever. Even in law school, people were planning on going out and opening their own firm. I'm like, y'all are crazy. Who wants to deal with all that red tape and running a business? And that sounds awful. And then that's exactly what I ended up doing. So when I set out, I said, okay, well, this can't be something that I get 2 years in and I'm unhappy. So I have to put all the pieces together to figure out what parts of all these other wonderful jobs that I've had made me feel discontent. Which parts made me want to leave? And then I need to take those parts away. And I realized, one, I needed connection. I needed the connection of people. I did not need to be stuck in an office all day. When you work in a litigation firm, it is not Perry Mason. You are in an office all day billing people, essentially. So I needed people connection. I also needed freedom to operate without that corporate weight. And I said, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to create that. I'm going to create an environment where we just work, where we trust each other, where we allow creativity, we allow a team. There's really no hierarchy here. Everyone just works together and do it in a way that feels loving, that feels like that same level of care that I was able to feel when I worked for the hospital system. And that's exactly what I started calling it, legal care. When I opened up, I said, we're not legal services, we provide legal care. Because I really wanted it to feel like medical care. Like when you go to a doctor and you have issues, here's what you have, here's a solution, let's work together. And so that's really what I wanted to build. And I didn't know if I could do it because it's really not a popular model in my industry. But I knew that I had to do it for two reasons. One, it was needed. One of the things I learned being in-house, and then we had outside counsel we hired, is the people in-house hated talking to the outside counsel. One, because it was going to cost them $100 a minute. And two, it was just not a good connection. We never had a good connection with our outside counsel because they didn't care about us. We were just a number on a page, and yes, we were a client, but there was no real care there. So one, I needed to do it for my clients. I was going to be caring. I was going to be caring for my clients. Two, I had to be a part of my community. I needed to connect to my community and support where I'm at, where my business, this is where I want my heart to be. It's going to be beyond these walls. We're going to support the community. And third, I needed to create an environment where I was happy working and where everyone that worked for me was happy working. So that was a very long answer to your question. But I feel like it was not, I've come to realize, and I hope I teach my kids, you think of life as linear, right? When you're young, you think, I'm here, then I go here, then I go here, college, job, retirement. Life is not, there's nothing linear about life at all. And so every journey is not point A to point B. It's point A and then some circles and then twisties and then you go backwards and then forward. And so no story about your journey can be linear. But that is how I got here. It was through my own discontentment. I just kept getting restless and unhappy and figuring out how to fix that for me. And then I figured out how to fix it for my clients and the people around me.
Thank you for taking us on that full journey. That gives us a really robust idea of where you came from and how you ended up where you're at now. I'm very, very curious about your experience then starting your own law practice and having the law care, because I know you chose that word very carefully as you were developing your business model. And when you put up you put up your awning and you said, I'm in business and it's going to be legal care. Did you get resistance from other attorneys? Did you get resistance from people in general saying, I don't think that's going to work, Casie? Or what did you face when you put that out there?
So really the first thing I faced was my own inside voices. I was blessed to be led to a mastermind that Staci was leading. And it was full of very strong business women. And had I not been part of that group, probably my voices would have taken over. But it was my own voices initially, even down to the things of how I decorated my office. So, I mean, you can see behind me, this is a very colorful moss wall. We're in my office. But if you come into my office, I have elephant statues doing yoga. I have a foosball table in my front lobby. It took me years to get to that point because that's the environment I wanted to create. That's what I wanted to have here. People would come in and say, "Oh, that's fun. That's whimsical." Look at the frog with glasses. I wanted a comfort, a fun, friendly environment, but I struggled so hard with my paint colors. And you can ask Carlos. I picked a paint color that I thought was cheery and warm and inviting, and I can't tell you how many times I went back and forth and then picking out furniture because I thought no one's going to take me serious. I could not get that voice out of my head. And that was my big voice, is that if you do this, if you go and you paint your wall teal and you don't have the big wooden furniture that every law firm has, and you don't have the elevator music and the white carpets, no one's going to take you serious. They're going to come in the door and they're going to turn around and say, are you even a lawyer? So my own voices were the ones I really had to get over. And I had to stop telling myself those things and say, no, I have to be true to myself. This is what I want. This is the environment I want to create. I'm going to create it. What's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work. I go buy some wood desks. It's fine. But really, it was my own voices to start with. And then kind of, at least initially, I was kind of just ignored by my legal community. And I don't think that that was necessarily because of what I was starting. I think it's just part of the industry. Now, I had to realize that because, when I first went out, because this is where I'm now practicing where I grew up. This is my hometown. And so I guess when I decided to open, I expected welcoming arms. And I don't know why I expected that. I mean, I'm literally trying to change my industry, but I expect my industry to give me the love I want to get. You see what I'm saying? it was an unreasonable expectation that I did expect to kind of have these open arms fly open and, oh, welcome. And we're so excited. And congratulations, you're going to do great things. And none of that happened. It was really just more of they didn't even know I was here. And I think that that's just the industry, to be honest. I think they are so encased in their own business and in their own caseload, they just don't pay attention to the world around them,
Yeah.
which is part of the problem. So initially I took that as offense, right? Nobody even cares I'm here. So I had to get over that. So a lot of the voices working against me were my own voices or my own voices. And it was really just over time when people would come in and they love the foosball table. And nobody hardly ever plays it. But everyone comments on it because it creates this environment of come in, play a game of foosball while you wait, sit down with us. Can we get you a drink, a pillow, a blanket? We have blankets in every room. It really was working. People were noticing it, and it really was kind of creating that comfortable environment. So it just took me time to get over my own voices and realize what I've created. People were really gravitating to the people I wanted to. And I will say this: I got resistance from clients or potential clients. I'll never forget one day I had a gentleman call. It was a new consult. And he was telling me his whole story, and he was all up in arms, and he was all upset. And I generally, I'd let people, they rant, they need to get it all out. And then we, discuss the issues. And so I try to discuss calmly, and he get all enraged again. And then we try to discuss it calmly, and he get all enraged. And finally he said, "Are you even a bulldog?" And I said, "No. And if that's what you're looking for, you have the wrong law firm. Let me refer you out." And that was a really hard step. That was the first client I remember turning away because their energy didn't match what we were trying to provide. That was really the big struggle. When people call me or meet with me, they expect me to want to fight. That is not the environment that I've created. It's not an environment of animosity or struggle. It's really my own voices, and then really learning which clients' energy does not match my energy and filtering those out. I've taken on some that don't match, because there's always financial pressure there. And every single time, if you take on a client that doesn't match your energy, it ruins your internal energy real fast. Those were lessons learned. It was a lot of your own voices.
That is so curious to me because I think that many people struggle. The hardest voice is their own, that you've got to talk yourself through stuff. What advice would you give to other leaders just in general about how do you deal with your own voice of self-doubt?
Yes, because this is a real thing. We are flipping the script, meaning we're doing something different than society has set. And if you're a young leader, and if you're a young woman leader, there are additional pressures put on you to perform that command and control. And you're not a real boss unless you can get in somebody's face and yell at them. We've spent our whole lives like creating this persona to fit in with what is expected. But when we really get into that, in tune with that, we get to a certain age and we're like, wait a minute, this is not aligning with my heart. This is not aligning with who I am truly want to be as a leader. Then Gloria's right. And you're right. This is the internal struggle that we have to overcome from all the years of trying to prove that we're good bosses and that we're good managers. Now we're saying, okay, wait a minute. I want to step into this, what feels right. What advice would you give to young leaders who are waking up to this and wanting to do it?
It's a journey. I guess there are some people that are naturally blessed with the I don't care gene, although I doubt that that's ever in anyone. We all care. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be loved. We all want to a degree, fit in. So it's a journey to get out of that mindset when where you're trying to fit doesn't fit you. And so that's my first piece of advice is pay attention when you feel that well, I just call it discontentment. That little stirring of I'm just not happy. I don't really have a good reason to not be happy, but what's happening, pay attention to that. Because that is your self telling you you don't fit here, something is off. And then follow that gut of, okay, what's off? And then after that, it's kind of an experiment. It's kind of well, did this make me feel better? No, did this make me, what is it? And that's kind of, I talked about, that's my journey, how I figured out I needed to be on my own so I could, do it my way. But, getting over those voices is kind of a similar journey. When you feel that anxiety or that tension pop in, you kind of have to just throw darts out and see when do you hit a nerve? And so, when you feel that anxiousness, is it the paint color? What is it that's causing it? And to kind of walk backwards to figure out where is it coming from? What exactly is the fear? I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of growth, and I've come to learn that you're never going to get to, like I said, when you're young, you think it's A to B to C to D, and then you retire. You're never going to get to D. Like you don't ever get there because there is no end. And so we're always working towards an end, and you have to get that out of your mind. It's not there. It doesn't exist. It's just the journey. And so, like for instance, when you're opening up an office, okay, I have to get equipment and furniture and I have to paint the walls, right? And so you think once it's done, it's done. I have to get over that mindset. And so, and I keep going back to paint because it was truly a mental struggle for me to paint my front office the color I wanted it to be. And I read this book one time and it just clicked with me. And it has now become one of my life, call philosophy or mantra. What is the worst that can happen? You have to run down those scenarios. And so what's the worst that can happen? If I paint my lobby the color I want to paint it, what's the worst that can happen? Someone comes in and hates it. Okay, maybe they're not meant for me. 20 people come in and hate it. Okay, maybe I just repaint. You have to stop thinking this is the end. Decisions that you make are never final, right? They're never the end. It is a decision for today. It may suit you for today. It may suit you for this week, but it's okay to change your mind. And what's the worst that can happen? You change your mind. I feel like we, especially as women, because we don't want to be seen as weak, right? We are the fairer sex, like we are the weaker sex that's just put on us. And so we think that indecision or changing our minds makes us look weak, at least in my life. Maybe that's not true for everyone. That's very true for me. I felt like I needed to make a decision and stick with it because if I change my mind, I look like I don't know what I'm doing. I look weak. I look indecisive. I look all of these things. And so I was fighting against that. And so I felt like every decision I made had to be the decision. This is it. You have to stick with it. And we just have to get over that mindset. And so those voices in your head, listen to them is the first thing. Figure out what's really causing it. What's really causing me to be worried about stupid paint color? Am I worried people are going to come in and turn around and go out the door? Is that really what I'm worried? Because that's just not going to happen. If people truly need me, they don't care what color anything in my office is. It's less about the surface things and more about who am I and what am I providing. Those voices are always the surface things. Those voices are always that top layer. It's not easy. It's not easy pushing past it. But then when you get validation, you slowly realize, okay, you take those little validation and let it build yourself up.
I think it's wonderful that, I mean, what I'm hearing you say is, first off, if we've got that internal battle, we got to ask ourselves, what's the worst that's going to happen? The worst that's going to happen when we really ask ourselves that question is not life or death, right? Which then takes some of the pressure off. And I absolutely love that you said, just try stuff, right? Experiment. Don't stay paralyzed. Try stuff. Take a step. And it can be a small step and it works great. You're ready to take the next. It doesn't. You get to rethink it and figure out what the next step is to take. And I love it because it's thinking about it. We're going to experiment here. And there's no failure in experimenting. Learning, it's growth, it's trying, it's moving forward, it's figuring out the next plan. So beautiful.
How important was it for you to have a tribe of people that offered you a different perspective and validation for your thoughts and feelings?
I know how Staci came into my life. I know it was God moving Staci into my life. I've tried, Staci, to go back and remember how I met you, and I cannot remember. I cannot remember how I got into the mastermind. I cannot remember it because first of all, I was in this tornado of, I've just left my beautiful corporate job to go out and make, I literally had one client and it was my former corporate job that I was working contract for, right? So I had nothing. I went from all this to nothingness. And so I was already in this kind of whirlwind and fighting all these voices. And I just happened to land in this beautiful group of women. I guarantee I don't even know that I would have kept the doors open if I had not had that tribe. I have a very supportive husband, but he had to work, right? So he's having to work because I'm chasing my dream. And so he wasn't here with me every day. And there were days I would go to the office. I had nothing to do because I had no plans. And I would just sit for very defeating days. And then there were just the days of complete confusion. I have no idea what I'm doing. And that group of women, had I not had that group around me, I would not, even if I had survived, it would not be what it is today. I would have succumbed. I would have gone back to this is how you do it in the legal world. I would be, a law firm with white carpet and big brown furniture, and I would be miserable. I probably would have left and gone back to corporate and just found a job that sustained me because I had so many voices to get over. And you really can't do that by yourself. It doesn't matter how many books you read. It doesn't matter. I mean, I talk to myself a lot, and talking to myself is great. talk to yourself, talk to yourself. I'm a proponent of talking to yourself, but it is not the same as having another voice there. A voice is someone you recognize as a successful, strong, intelligent, capable, creative woman saying, what are you talking about? Pull yourself together. This is not that hard. Do what feels right. Like all of these things that, and it seems so simple to someone else. And when it seems so simple to someone that you respect in that way, it becomes more simple for you. It tears down a lot of that, the ominousness, the bigness of the struggle gets torn down when someone who you know and respect is sitting across from you going, what are you freaking out about? This is not a big deal. Calm down. Here's what you do. ABC, move on. There's a lot of value in that. And you can't do it without a tribe. And that's the tribe I started with. And then as my office grew, I created that tribe here. I actually brought Staci in to my office to kind of create that same mastermind things that we covered with my crew here, because you have to build a crew. You can't just, a lot of entrepreneurs just do it themselves. I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself. And I get that to a degree. I fight that too. But if you ever want to actually truly achieve what you want to do, you have to have a team. You have to have a team around you. Even if it's just for the day where you're like, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. You have to have someone else saying, get up, go to work. You're changing the world.
Yes. And that truly, when we're talking about bringing heart and compassion into business, you are changing the world. You are doing something very different, and you do need a tribe. And so find your tribe, whoever that is. Now, Heart Profit has created a support group, right? Where people can come together and we do get other people's perspectives. And we have brilliant women like Gloria that teach us these principles that we need in order to be successful in bringing this new way of being into business. Anybody that's listening to this, you're a trailblazer. You would not be listening to this if you weren't a trailblazer. And it's difficult bringing new things into the world, especially compassion into business. They don't typically go together.
I just want to anchor the value of the tribe because the tribe is the reinforcement, the tribe is the validation, and tribes will challenge your thinking in supportive ways that help you grow. So tribes are huge for that inner voice conflict that we have going on.
Absolutely. And then it sounds like what Casie did was she had that tribe, it got her to a place, and then she internalized that tribe and turned her team and her inside her business into that tribe to help her continue this out into the world. So yeah, that culture in your own business is super important as well.
On that point, you have to also, and this is when I still struggle with, you have to empower your tribe. So when I went, when you're going to a mastermind with 10 business owner women, of course, they don't need you to empower them. Yeah, they're already empowered. But when I brought that internal, it was very important that my team was on the same page with me. And when I brought that internally, I had to empower them to check me, because that empowerment naturally exists in the mastermind world. It doesn't naturally exist in where there is, there is a hierarchy. Technically, I'm the boss. It's just there. But you have to kind of empower your team and your tribe here to say, if I violate these tenets, these are the most important things in our company. And if I violate these, you have a right to check me, and please check me. And if you don't check me, that's on you, right? And they have to do it to me constantly, mainly around money, right? Because money is all of our struggle. I want to give away my services because it is less awkward for me to give it away than bill for it, and that's a whole nother discussion. But they will look at me in my face and say, you're not acting right. You're not following our rules. And you have to empower your tribe. You can't just build a tribe that coddles you, that says what you want them to say, tells you you're wonderful. Yes, you need that. You need the people to say you are wonderful, but they need to say it in a way to say you're wonderful. So stop undercutting yourself. And so that's the tribe you need. If you don't empower your tribe, then it just kind of it loses its power. It loses power. So make sure the people around you, whoever you've chosen, maybe you've chosen a best friend that doesn't work with you, empower them to say, hey, if I violate these important things, it's your job to check me.
So what would you say to other leaders who are considering becoming a Heart Profit certified company, or considering like really incorporating these into their business, into their leadership style? What would you say? What advice would you give to them?
Well, do it. Do it. Number one, just do it. The switch, right? I don't understand, and especially now that I've gone out And with my nothing, I started with nothing, and I've been able to achieve a successful firm that is sustaining employees and client, it works. I will never understand why this is not already out. People will look at me and say, well, it's easy for you. You only have 3 people. And I think it's the flips, the reverse. It's like, it was almost impossible for me and almost killed me. It would be easy for Apple, right? Like Google, like all of these big companies could set this path and they haven't. And I cannot wrap my brain around that. I just can't, right? Because the number one problem in my expertise, right? In the corporate world, because I was in the corporate world and I left it was miserable. Nobody in the corporate world is happy. They may love their job. The environment itself is not an environment that breeds happiness, and your employees are going to leave you. They're going to leave you, or they're going to be unhappy and they're going to do poor work. And so to me, it's a math equation, right? It's not necessarily even let me think about doing this. It is a necessity. It's math. It's if you don't do this, you're going to have unhappy employees. You're going to have higher turnover. You're going to have an environment nobody wants to go to work, and your productivity is going to go down. It's just the pattern that works. And these corporate, big corporations will come in and they'll bring in snacks, or they'll bring in, all these very superficial things to try and increase employee satisfaction. They never actually fix the problem. And the problem is that their energy is off and they have to start at the root of it. So I can't understand why this isn't already in every corporation world, really. Not to say that there isn't. I know there are wonderful corporations who have implemented this, and they probably could write novels on the success. But the highest turnover, if you talk to any corporation, any company, big, small, their biggest struggle is people, keeping people, training people, employee satisfaction. It is a huge struggle for organizations, and it takes up so much time and energy. But what measure of success are you using? If you want good people and you want to keep good people, that is not the measure of success. My husband worked for a large health insurance organization, and everyone he worked with, he loved his team. He loved his people. The team all loved each other, but they did not love the company. And so the turnover, I think he had 6 different bosses in a matter of 5 years. And it's just so much money out the door, first of all. And it's so much morale out the door. And so are they successful on paper? Yes. I mean, they're still turning out, they're still turning a profit. They're turning a profit. But you have to change your measure of success. And any company that says, the bottom line is our only measure of success, is just going to fail eventually. But my advice is do it, because the best asset you have is your people. That's the best asset that you have is your people, both your employees and your customers. And if you create a heart-based organization, it creates a bond with them that they are not going to leave you, right? Like there becomes a bond and a happiness and a true content for your work and for what you're doing, and you're making a change, and all these great things can actually, like, we talk about that here, and we talk about those things, and we talk about feelings, and it has created a loyalty and an environment that just naturally grows. So if you put your measure of success not as your bottom line, right? The measure of success is, do I enjoy going to work every day? Do my employees enjoy going to work every day? Do my clients like calling me? And if that's your measure of success, make that top priority, and everything else falls in line. And the profits naturally come with that. And early on, when Heart Profit first started, I said, this needs to be in every corporation. This needs to be taught in corporations, because so many unhappy people that just get up every day, drag themselves to work, put in their 8 hours, which means you only really get 3 hours of productive actual work out of them, because they're unhappy. And they drive home and they're just unhappy. And there's just this underpinning of unhappiness all around us. And you have to find the source of that. And I believe a big source of that is if your work environment is not supporting you, of course you're going to go home depressed. Of course you're going to have zero energy. And just, to me, it's so logical. It's so logical that I almost can't really understand why it's not already the standard.
You nailed it on every level. So thank you so much for being here. I am inviting you back again. This is going to be an ongoing conversation that we continue to have. If you liked what you heard today and you're resonating with this message, go to heartprofit.org, go to the business page, fill out the contact us form. we will reach out to you with the information on how you can get involved with this tribe and this community and incorporate heart-based practices into your leadership. So thank you guys for being here. We will see you next week. More great topics about what it means to be heart-led and heart-based in your business and leadership. Thank you, Casie, again. Thank you, Gloria, for being here.